Hello and welcome back to A Celtic State of Mind. I'm back from my travels, and gentlemen, I think I've let you down. I was at the Colours last night, as you can hear my voice is a bit tender after a good old night out in Falkirk. Not been at that stadium for a long, long time, but I was on the pitch in Falkirk, and a good night. And I'll start the show off by giving a shout out to Bobby, who I was standing beside, who knew me off Acsom. So if he's watching today, I hope you had a cracking night last night. Gents, it's good to be back. I was away my travels. I know Lawrence, you were away during the week. Patrick, you've had one of your holidays. Me and you jet off tomorrow to Dublin with our pal Matthew for the Scotland game. It's starting to get into that wee bit of groove. We're kind of halfway there between the football stopping and the football coming back. Patrick, what are you doing to kind of keep yourself busy just now? Because it does seem that kind of lull without Celtic, doesn't it?
Yeah, it is a bit of a lull. Obviously we're following the Scotland games. Last Wednesday was a disappointment. Me and you are going to Ireland to follow Scotland on the Saturday night, Scotland Ireland. So you've got that to keep you entertained for the time being. I think once the internationals stop, that'll be a real struggle because I think you've got a month between international stopping and then our first friendly in the Czech Republic. But I just keeping up to date with the transfer news. Jota and CCV are keeping us all on our toes. Until those are over the line, we can sort of scroll through Twitter for hours every day, waiting for them to be confirmed. And I just try to keep up with any Celtic news that we can get.
Yeah, absolutely. Lawrence, it's, as Patrick says, they are keeping us on our toes. I still expect and really hope that these two deals are going to happen. Obviously, we've saw a picture of Jota come out. He's on holiday and he's got his hoops top on. I thought, the Twitter page wishing CCV all the best, even though he's officially left the club. His loan deal has expired for his game when he was playing for the USA the other night. We really hope these two deals happen. One deal, which looks as if it could be a bit of a nightmare, is Christopher Scott. What's your take on this? There was reports saying that he was close to the deal. There's now reports saying today that he doesn't want to leave Germany. I don't think I'd be too worried if we don't get him because we do seem to have this, forward planning under Ange Postecoglou. If we don't get Christopher Scott, I'm sure we'll be in the market for another attacking midfielder.
Yeah, they've activated the year in his contract, haven't they? Maybe it's just to protect the team. They can get some money from him even if they don't keep him. But no, if he wants to come, all well and good. If he doesn't fancy it, we move on. Get someone that does.
Yeah, that's it. You know what? I think that's the biggest thing under Ange these days, gents. That if a player doesn't want to come to Celtic, we're not actually too disappointed in it. We've saw Riley McGree, what's happened to him, and right away Matt O'Reilly appears, and what a blessing he is. And again, we're going to see a lot more to come from him. Our tagline there is 9 Celts leave as Ange is set for another huge transfer window. Before on air, we were trying to count through some of these guys, and it's apart from your Rogic and Near Beaton, Patrick, a majority of these guys that have now left the club haven't played a lot of first team football. Even Karamoko and Bailey's in that bracket, not playing for the first team too much, obviously due to a bad injury last season. We saw flashes of him before that. People were maybe disappointed around Luca Coro because certainly in the friendlies he looked as if a bit of a player, but again, it's too hard to judge. What's your thoughts about the guys that have departed the club?
Yeah, I mean, you're looking at guys like Afalabi, you could sort of just youngsters who haven't really played for the team. It's hard to give any thoughts really. I mean, Karamoko's a disappointing one because we all thought he was the next big star. We think he's going to be the best player in the world in about 10, 15 years' time. He's never really had a look into the first team. He might have got it this season if it wasn't for that horror injury at the start of the season, but he's never managed to make the breakthrough. Luca Cornell, as you say, is quite disappointing because he was a bit of a star at Bolton in the English Championship, and we thought, right, he can maybe make an impact in the first team, but he was sort of stuck in the reserves, and then he went to Queen's Park for 2 years, and he seems to have done all right at that level, but just a bit disappointing. Never made it to Celtic. I'm sure he can walk into a few Scottish first teams if he wanted to. The rest of them, again, disappointing to lose Rogic and Beaton. He's two very liked players, but the rest of them, it's hard to say anything really because, as you say, they've not made an impact in the first team thus far.
No, they've not, and again, it's disappointing because I think the Celtic way is to breed your own and get them into that first team, but it's just not happened to a lot of these guys. Lawrence, guys like Keir McInroy's had multiple loan spells out. Patrick's touched on Luca Connell. being out at Queen's Park for that period of time. It looks possibly as if Luke O'Connor might be heading to Fleetwood to play under his former captain and Scott Brown. Apart from Rogic and Beaton, is there any of these guys that you're really too disheartened about leaving the club?
It's only really Ewan Henderson, and he's touched on Dembele that we've really seen anything of, isn't it? So I don't think Beaton and Rogic are included in the 9 though. I think that was like 9 in the one day it went. But yeah, they've been. I mean, Ross Doolan's been about on loan. I think Brody Patterson was out on loan. Same with Keir McInroy. So not really seen too much of them. I thought Ewan Henderson looked like a decent player any time he played, but again, didn't happen for him in the last year for whatever reason. He was out. Was it Hibs he was on loan at? I wouldn't ask. So yeah, not too disappointed. It's maybe just a time to freshen up the squad. Move them on, free up a bit of wages.
Yeah, again, between these guys, Patrick, the wages aren't going to be anywhere near your Beaton and Rogics, but it's about that collective kind of spirit and identity of squad. And we heard Ange after that Raith Rovers game talking about 23, 24 players. I don't doubt that maybe Beaton and Rogic, apart from that, none of these guys would have probably been into that category. Maybe Dembele at a push, but the rest of them just haven't, been in about it. We wish them all the well on their way, but again, it's another colossal clear out, and it kind of begs questions about players coming through and where that pathway comes. But I think for a lot of these guys, it's maybe just been unfortunate for them that the pathway's not been as clear there, and now we're getting to a point under Ange where he's going to make sure that pathway is clear and give players that chance that if they are shown something, they can get that chance to break into the first team eventually.
Yeah, it's maybe just came a bit too late for this group of players. You never know. I think Ewan Henderson was maybe in and around the first team because I think he made his debut in Brendan Rodgers' last game about 3.5 years ago. So maybe he was in about the squad. Again, you say maybe Karamoko's in the fringes of it in the last year or so. But, as you say, a lot of these guys will be playing, sort of, under 21s or the reserve league football. So it is a bit of a clear out because these guys get to a certain age. You either need to incorporate them in the squad or move them on, and it's sad, it's harsh, but again, how many of these guys are going to break into Celtic first team? Probably none of them, if I'm being honest. The guys that are leaving, guys like Afalabi who have struggled at Dundee and stuff, struggling to score in the Scottish Championship. It's just not going to happen. So I think it's just best for all parties to move on.
No, absolutely. Lawrence, I'll come to you from this point from Paul that he makes, and he said in the comments, I think we're seeing now is that Ange has been more ruthless about the type of player that fits his mould. Dembele, Hendo look decent, but have they showed enough to excel in our team? Probably not. What's your thoughts on that, Lawrence? As I said there to Patrick, in terms of that squad and the group of players that Ange has spoken about, I don't think there was many of the guys that we've seen depart the club now probably, be included in that and his plans going forward.
Yeah, I think he's spot on. Dembele and Hendo maybe, but nothing. Obviously, Dembele injured last season. I don't think Henderson looked particularly brilliant when he played for Hibs. So yeah, clear it out, freshen it up. As you say, there's no point in them hanging about if they're not going to make it. They're just taking up jerseys, aren't they? They're just filling space in the squad. They've got to kind of, I suppose, he's right, be ruthless with the turnover and get people in that, somebody's been kicking about on loan for a few years. It's just not happening for them, is it? Just need to move them on.
Yeah, that's it. I don't think there's too much disappointment around this. But Patrick, just to kind of touch on this, it was confirmed earlier today that Celtic will continue to participate in the Lowland League. There's been a bit of to and fro with that, but we're definitely going to be in there next season. So again, it also gives some of the younger guys who are going to come into that team a chance because guys like McInroy and Afalabi, they've not really been part of that team for the Lowland League. They've been out playing I think Championship football last season. So again, it's not too much even a disappointment in terms of that B team squad because they're just not in and about it and contributing something to the football club as so yeah, listen, we wish them all the best. It'll be interesting to see how some of them get on. Really interested to see if Luke O'Connor ends up doing it Fleetwood with Scott Brown. I think that'd be quite a interesting pair up. But yeah, good luck to all of them who have departed the club, and you never know, we might see some of them kick on from here, but you never know. As everyone knows, Axom's been focusing on different European campaigns throughout this wee break of football, and today we're going to look at 2017-18. Me and Patrick are trying to pick the ones that are kind of our generational age, Lawrence. I mean, I know you remember the 90s, but we just don't. It's a big lull. And the 90s...
Yeah, I remember the 80s.
Football. But I know you remember the 80s football and other things off the park, so we don't want to go there, but we're going to stick to Celtic in the Champions League. This was the last time we played for in the Champions League. Patrick, I'll come to you. We'll try and wrap the qualifiers just into one. It was 3 qualification rounds. We gubbed Linfield 6-0. Once again, Celtic European football. There was a big debacle about fans getting into the stadium, and eventually I think that match was a Friday, 14th of July, rounded about that date. Because of everything rounded about that date, there was a big kick-up about Celtic fans being allowed into Windsor Park, blah, blah, blah. But eventually, Celtic fans get in, gubbed them 2-0 over there and 4-0 at Celtic Park. Then it was Rosenborg, 0-0 at Celtic Park. James Forrest gets an important goal over there in Norway, in Trondheim. We get through, then it's a playoff round, and we absolutely battered Astana 5-0, and we get beat 4-3 over there. In terms of just that qualifying campaign, really good result in the playoff round against Astana, but my nerves were very, very bad when we returned over in Kazakhstan. Very, absolutely relentless at Celtic Park against them, but it was a tough old night, even though, the aggregate score was 8-4 to Celtic.
Yeah, pretty nerve-wracking, I think. I could be wrong, it might have been 4-1 at some point over there. I know there was a period just after half-time where they were scoring for fun. I think they scored 2 and then missed an open goal or something. I can't remember exactly, but yeah, it was pretty nervy, especially that second half, because Sinclair, I think, equalised just before half-time, and you think that's the tie done, and then, we just come back and we fall apart. I think Ayer scores an own goal or something. But
yeah, we did. That was at the start of the game.
Right. Yeah, we done very, very well. First leg, I think Rogic gets a nasty injury, but we end up scoring. I think it was Forrest or Sinclair that went up and scored.
Forrest, another goal in the Champions League qualifier for Forrest.
It was quite strange because, I mean, if you're 5-0 up after the first leg in a Champions League playoff round, you sort of look at yourself and think, we could maybe do something here, because this is a decent level, and that ends up not happening. I'm sure we'll come to the group stage in a minute, but yeah, I think the Rosenborg game was pretty tough because nothing each at home. You going away, you probably think to yourself, need a bit of a favour here, need a bit of a miracle, and as you say, with about 8 minutes to go, James Forrest scores from a very tight angle. It's a wonderful goal.
Really great goal.
But yeah, it was an interesting qualifying campaign.
Yeah, it was an interesting qualifying campaign. That Forrest goal was 69 minutes, so we even had to, ride the storm for a good bit in that game. Lawrence, round about that time, we seemed to get Rosenborg a hell of a lot. If you remember, that was one of the first times we got drawn against them, and then in the following season, up they came in the Europa League. But became quite, we got the better of them majority of the time, and obviously they helped us out in that second season. They drew or they beat Salzburg, if you remember right, and that's how we got into the Europa League after Christmas to play Valencia. But yeah, as Patrick says, it was a bit of a whirlwind campaign. Very, very comfortable in the first game against Linfield, home and away. Patrick says we go over to Trondheim. You're maybe thinking this would be a tough night after not winning at Celtic Park, got the victory over there, and then the Astana game. It's just nice not having to worry about these qualifications. Obviously, this was the last time we get through these qualifiers to get into the Champions League, but it's nice to just be able to relax this season and know we don't need to have these tormenting experiences, isn't it?
Yeah, although I think the group games were fairly tormenting as well, weren't they? Let's be honest. But it doesn't sound too bad when you think it was 8-5 in aggregate, but I think Patrick's right.
8-4.
They were 8-4, but they were close to it at one point, weren't they? They did go 4-1 up, and you're kind of thinking, right, wait a minute here, this isn't what we paid the money for. But we got through. Yeah, I think they got some fines along the way. Graf got fined for tying his scarf to a goalpost, I believe. As was his want, that was your club's deed bait season, wasn't it?
That was that season, yeah.
So yeah, it was a decent season, but we needed to do a lot better, I think, in the group stages, didn't we? It was, what was it, 1-1?
What game is that?
Group stages.
Group stages, yes, we won one game. I think we're saying a 1-1 draw. Yeah, we won one game, 5 defeats. And the first of those defeats, Patrick, was when PSG rocked into town. You knew it was going to be a long night when we were 1-0 down from a Neymar goal in the 19th minute. Neymar, who, seems to have got a wee message from Tony Ralston to Kyogo, who got absolutely clattered yesterday in that Japan and Brazil game. So yeah, it'd be interested if we get PSG again, because I think there's 2 Celtic players now vying to do Neymar and again. But yeah, we get absolutely torn apart at Celtic Park that night, and it was a really long night, wasn't it? A really, really poor game from our point of view. A lot of class. I mean, that Cavani header's absolutely top class, but yeah, we didn't have a good night at the office at all that day, did we?
No, and I don't know about you, but I think I started to think about Brendan Rodgers differently at that period of time, because first season we won the treble, didn't do that badly in Europe apart from the Barcelona defeat the season before. 7-1 away from home, or 7-0 away from home, I should say. We win the treble, unbeaten, invincible, and then you maybe try and look to do something in Europe. As I said, you win your first playoff leg 5-0. You sort of fancy yourself, and then that happens, and it's just a right back down to earth sort of thing. Getting battered 5-0 at home, I think it's our worst ever home defeat in Europe by some distance.
Yeah.
And we kept on breaking it consistently. I think it was only AC Milan about 4 years before that was our worst home defeat up until then. So you felt yourself slipping in European standards, even with Brendan Rodgers at the helm. But it was a bad game, and that was the one that they turned up less than 24 hours before kickoff, which under UEFA rules you're not really meant to do. And I think everyone was dead up for it, because they've underestimated us. We can hopefully cause an upset here, and then you look at what happens, 5-0. So I quite a disappointing group stage, and I'm sure we'll come on to each game individually.
Yeah, Lawrence, Tony Ralston, I think that was his first, game in the group stages of the Champions League. It would have been when he came up against Neymar. Obviously, there's that kind of infamous picture of him, saying to Neymar, "Are you getting wide here?" But the bigger question I'd ask you is that if we end up with a PSG in this group stages, how do we avoid that kind of hammering again at home? Because it really was a disappointing night, and we'll come to the flip game. I think it was about 4 minutes we were up 1-0. A bit of it was in the Parc de France. We got absolutely mauled 7-1. How do we avoid these defeats? Because obviously we're going to be up against a lot of quality. People already are worried about the way we play football. I'm looking forward to the way we play football against some of these teams. How do we avoid results like this in the Champions League?
So, I mean, Brendan, and he said he's going to stick to his principles, in his way of playing football. And I suppose it depends. Is Ange going to do the same? Does Ange do it better? Certainly this season, I'd have thought, those patches especially against Betis, look really good. So let's hope that he's going to perform better as manager in Europe, because I don't think Brendan really done it, did he? He was putting a load of hammerings after him. With him at the hell in Europe, so 7-1. Jeez, but there was some team at that time, but 7-1. It's a good scoreline, but not to be on the receiving end of it. No,
absolutely not. I think we prefer it when we are doing it in a certain cup final. Patrick, what's your take on it? How do we avoid this? Because as Lawrence said there, Rodgers was very clear that he was sticking to his principles in it. Ange has said very clearly he's not going to change. But I just think, the mentality of Ange Postecoglou, he'll want to win these games, and he's not, daft, as I'd spoken about before, when he was Aussie manager, the way in which he frustrated Louis van Gaal and other coaches in that World Cup campaign. He's came up against good coaches before, and he's going to be the first Stallion-born manager to manage in the Champions League. He's got a big point to prove here, and he likes doing that. He said, he's not got a point to prove from our perspective, but in terms of Aussie football and his credentials to, we spoke about that European snobbery, which I think we were all bad for. at the beginning of last season. To prove here that you can be a gaffer from a different continent but play the same football and make it successful.
Yeah, totally. I think, to be fair to Brendan, I've just slagged them off, but you need to look at that Bayern Munich game. I think if a team isn't quite at their best and you take the game to them, you can almost get something, because if it wasn't for a combination of Craig Gordon and Neil Beaton, we could have got a 1-1 draw that night. It's typical of Celtic in Europe recently, where we score usually an equaliser and then immediately concede to fall behind again. We've done it against Copenhagen, Bodo Glimt, Bayern Munich, as I'm just saying. We score these goals, you get a bit of momentum, and then within about 3 minutes, you concede again. So I think that's just what you need to do. And Ange will take the game to the opposition full 90 minutes. There'll be no stopping. You're probably going to line up with Maeda and Kyogo at least, as that two of that front three. So, whether it's PSG, Bayern Munich, Man City, Porto, Sevilla, Frankfurt, whoever it is, we're going to be pressing from the front. And, Ange obviously believes that that's the best way to defend, to attack from the front. And hopefully it works a couple of times.
Yeah, hopefully it does work a couple of times. Listen, the way we press teams and, the way in which that inverted fullback system can work very well, there's no reason why we can't win games in the Champions League. I'm being corrected here by Peter. Timmy Ange is Greek born. Yep, but I think he does come across as like a Aussie Greek manager, and for certainly the Australian press, they're claiming him as their own, as the first Australian born manager to manage in the Champions League. So yeah, stayed there most of his life. As I say, Australian media is definitely claiming that one, and it'd be really interesting to see. We spoke before, and we had our Australian guest in the podcast. We spoke about the coverage that was going to be around that final day of the season. Australian media is going to be absolutely loving this with Celtic in the Champions League, because this is, the creme de la creme of competition, Lawrence, and to cover it is going to be great. But listen, after that 5-0 doing, flip side of it, we went to Belgium and we won 3-0 in Anderlecht, and it was Roberts, Sinclair and Griffiths with the goals in that night, and it was an absolutely great performance. Again, it maybe builds into that European mantra, Patrick. I've spoken to you about this a lot, that when you actually get a team, I think Anderlecht were missing a few key players that night, but we went over there. It was a top performance and a great result, and it's probably one of the best Celtic away performances in Europe, this side of 2000.
I think so, mate. I mean, prior to maybe beating Ajax, I don't know. Yeah, it probably was. I think this season, if we pick up anything on the road, it's a bonus. It's really kind of, we want to win our home games. We want to make it part of the fortress again, don't we? We should be able to do that. Yeah, wee bit of luck in who you draw is maybe what we're looking for.
Yeah.
You get PSG and Bayern. They were two of the best teams in that year's competition. So what we're expecting to pick up, definitely nothing on the road. But I think Ange is probably a wee bit more switched on than Brendan. Brendan was, I think, very open. As much as we've been told that Ange's style is really open, we were tight defensively at the back last season. We didn't lose a lot of goals. So hopefully he can build on that again this year. Whether that's signing Cameron. I know we've been linked with a couple of left backs. We'll see who's going to bring in. See what kind of effect that's going to have on us. But I think, like Juranovic, easily Champions League level player. Same with Carter Vickers. Joe Hart's been there, done it. So as much as we say, we might lose a few goals and Ange likes to attack, I think, we have a decent defence on the park.
Patrick, on the road, is it a bonus just to try and get anything on the road, or should we be looking at a team like Anderlecht? Obviously, we've got third place in this group, as Lawrence already touched on, by only winning one game. Is it looking at that third place team, pot 3 place team, should I say, and looking at trying to beat them at Celtic Park and definitely try and get something on the road? Something we did very well against Ferencváros. Obviously in the Europa League, different competition, but we did well and we proved that we could go and do it, because in that Europa League group you were looking at Leverkusen and Betis as the two top teams in the group, and you're looking at Ferencváros. But I think it's important to look at that pot 3 team, or the team that is beatable, hopefully, are looking at definitely beating them at Celtic Park, but absolutely try to take something on the road against them. If you get a victory, it's a massive bonus.
Yeah, you're looking to basically beat them in aggregate, aren't you? Because I think it doesn't come down to goal difference, it comes down to head if you finish in the same points. So definitely look to beat them in aggregate. I think with the new change with the away goals no longer count for double. I think it's a sort of acknowledgement that home advantage is a lot less now, because when Celtic come up against PSG, maybe 15 years ago, when Strachan was in charge or Martin O'Neill was in charge, you would say, "Oh, fancy Celtic to get something." Nowadays, the gulf in football and finances and quality is just so big that when you're playing PSG at Celtic Park, it doesn't really count. There isn't really an advantage there. We're still miles away from it, and I think that's why they've removed the away goals rule. So I think if we can show that we're a better team than the third pot team over the course of the 2 games that we play, you're probably unlikely to pick anything up in the other 4 games. So I think that's just the aim. If we get, I've not looked at the pot 3 teams recently. I think it's teams like, is it like Sporting Lisbon and Seville and stuff?
Sports definitely in there. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think you've
Have a
got
look at
Salzburg as well. So it'll be a bit of a tough ask. Sporting won the league last season. Salzburg, I think, win the league every season in Austria. We've played them a few times as well. So it'll be a bit of a tough ask, but I'm sure Ange loves his challenge. He said on, I think it was the SEN video while he was on holiday in Greece, that he loves insecurity. He doesn't like security. He loves insecurity. It's what he thrives on. It's when he does best. So hopefully we backs to the wall. We absolutely thrive next season.
Yeah, we really hope so. Lawrence, those pot 3 teams that Patrick touched on, Borussia Dortmund's also in there. So they mentioned Salzburg, Shakhtar, Donetsk, Napoli, Sporting Lisbon, and our old friends Bayer Leverkusen we played last year. But on the road in the Europa League last season, Lawrence, we did prove that we could go up against teams, and Leverkusen in their own backyard, we gave a hell of a game to. Of course, we came out on the wrong side of the scoreline, but 3-2 over in Germany, 4-3 in Spain, and obviously we won in Ferencvaros. Do you think this team's proved that they can do it in the road in Europe so far, and they'll definitely give teams a game?
Both times we gave them a game. We've got goals in us. The team's improved since then. We've added to the squad, and I think it's an improved squad. You'd hope that Ange would be, would be able to pick something up on the road. I still see it as a bonus when your home games. Patrick touched on Strachan. We McManus and Caldwell as our centre halves. We're getting to the last 16. It's there was a big gulf between the quality of our players and who we're up against. So I think we have a clear plan, and the players well drilled. It's possible for us, especially atmosphere at Celtic Park. Some players they just get overawed by it. So we need to use that kind of atmosphere to our advantage.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, I think it's trying to change that at Celtic Park. Teams, I think Patrick, that they can rock up and beat us at Celtic Park. It's about creating an atmosphere and really getting behind the team. To touch on here, I was talking about Leverkusen away there. Brown Warriors said, Kyogo missed 4 clear chances versus Leverkusen at Celtic Park. Again, to build into that, he'd only just returned from injury. And again, it's about where your squad is at that point. Lawrence, as you say there, we're a lot stronger as a squad at this point in time. And if you've got everybody fit and you're firing, there's no reason why you can't get good results at Celtic Park. The squad is in a better place, and we hope by the end of this transfer window we'll be in an even stronger place. Patrick, as we said, 3-0 over in Belgium, great result. And then it was over to the Alliance. It was my first Celtic Champions League trip. And, it was 3-0 going in about 7-0. And we got absolutely hammered. Muller, Kimmich and Mats Hummels with the goals. It was a disappointing night. Listen, I think we got a goal chalked off it towards the end of the game. But it was another disappointing night. It was probably the only positive you take out it was that we kept the scoreline down to 3-0.
Yeah. I think it was Sinclair in the last minute. It was an absolute peach as well. I think it was curled into the top corner for the edge of the box. But it's not that 3-0 at the Allianz. It's not the worst result in the world. You're probably going there expecting to lose. So to keep the scoreline below 4 or 5 is pretty good going, even if it could have been more. But the 2 PSG games are the ones that stick out in the memory. That game at the Allianz. it's like a nothing game. You sort of expect it to happen. You don't expect us to take anything. It's not the worst result in the world. Getting a goal would have been nice, but yeah, I think that the home game was the disappointment to get it back to 1-1 with about 13 minutes to go, and then to concede within a minute and then lose 2-1. It's a great performance, but you're disappointed there. And I think that probably sums up that group stage, actually. You know, there was many different games, but in one way or another, you always end up disappointed. You know, it was either a thumping or we came close and didn't quite get there. Even though we get through in the end by finishing third, it was a slight disappointment.
Yeah, it was a disappointment. I'm just actually looking at the starting 11 for that 3-0 defeat in the Alliance. And Christian Gamboa, I remember him started at right back. So once again, it just shows you that if you're not, Mikel Lustig had to be played at centre half because we were so short. Lee Griffiths started up top. So, again, like a guy like Gamboa, no disrespect to him, but he wasn't first choice. Lustig was the first choice, and he's had to be played at centre half. So again, though, it touches on where your squad's at, injuries, and where players are at. But as Patrick says, it wasn't the worst defeat in Germany. You were up against top quality. You're probably going to take some of these, bangs in the chin along the way, but it's how you recoup and bounce back from them. And we nearly did bounce back in the return against Celtic Park. Carl McGregor gets that equaliser. It would have been a great point to probably get at Celtic Park. It would have all but sealed the deal to get that third place and go into the Europa League. But, sucker punch Martinez gets the goal in the 77th minute and they can't respond.
Yeah. Well, listen, they're a decent team, but I think this season, looking at what Ange has done with a half-built team, I would say it was in Europe, I think we can expect to improve on it, can't we, this season? It'd be reasonable. And, defensively, I think we all know we're in, for Cam Vickers, probably another left back. I think, you get Joe Hart and goal. It's a solid foundation for us to push on. I mean, that year, it was two big teams, and yeah, I think they probably went through with a record low points total, didn't we? Of 3, as opposed to when we used to go out with having 9 points and stuff. But no, it's what it was. It just maybe shows you how good a group that was. That we only got 3 points, but still went through.
Yeah, absolutely. You should say 2 top teams. The Anderlecht one's probably the one that sticks out for me more than anything. I'm being reminded here, and rightfully so, by the way, that Gamboa slammed in a piece of a goal against Bayern Munich last season for the VFL. So I think you get a bit of redemption on it. Just a pity it wasn't in a Celtic jersey, but yeah, he's playing out there in Bundesliga for Bochum. Listen, I thought he was an okay player. First when he came into the side, I thought he was pacey. He looked as if he could defend. I think his last good game for Celtic was in the League Cup at Firhill in August 2018, if I remember. So yeah, a name from the past to pop up there, Christian Gamboa. But Patrick, as I spoke to Lawrence about there, that game at Celtic Park was the kind of what if, because a great goal from Callum McGregor, took it really, really well, getting past Manuel Neuer. But, they're the kind of games where you just need to maybe hold on and try and get that point, because it would have been a big point for us that night.
Yeah, and, sometimes football fans can get mocked for celebrating a draw, but in terms of the golfing finances and stuff, the golfing quality is unbelievable these days, and to get a draw would have been a fantastic result. I remember celebrating the goal. I was in disbelief, that we could get a draw against Bayern Munich. Because, I think when I started following Celtic, they were the Champions League winners, the European champions, 2-1 against Dortmund 4 years earlier. So, yeah, it was a bit of a shame. I think that's when my love of Nir Beaton slowly started to die, because I think he was the one that lost Javi Martinez in the box for that header about a minute later. But I mean, I think that summer we really let ourselves down. I mean, I think I've spoken about this before, and it's why we need to strengthen this summer, because you have Ralston playing against PSG, you've got Gamboa playing against Bayern Munich, Lustig in the middle of the park. Lustig shouldn't have been at the club by that point. He should have been moved on. That was the start of a 2-year decline for Lustig. I know we were very unlucky with injuries that season, but to play 3 different right backs in 6 games in the Champions League when you don't really trust any of them, it's a bit of it's a sign that you've not done your business properly. You know, we only signed 2 or 3 players permanently that summer, so we really failed to kick on. But as you say, another disappointment. You know, you've got the 5-0 drubbing. That's a disappointment because you concede so many goals, and then the next home game 2-1 to come so close and come away with nothing apart from a good performance. Just another disappointment, really. And I think we let ourselves down that season.
Yeah, we did. Lawrence, I think that is a really good point that Patrick makes there. At the end of that, invincible Sable season, we were in a complete position of strength. We added Olivier and Cham in. He was the big buy at £4 million odd pounds. Paddy Roberts came back for another loan stint. As about kicking on properly, because I think, especially when you're getting drawn against Bayern Munich and PSG, you need the players to go up against them. And even just being left with Griffiths and Dembele as your strikers probably wasn't enough in that competition. I mean, you look down at centre half especially as well, having to bring Lustig in. I think Joe's obviously had an injury. It is about having strength and depth, and we simply didn't that season. And when you're trying to come up against top quality teams, like we've mentioned, you need to have enough there as a squad that, if we do head into the Champions League this season, with the same group of players and have not added to it, we will get found out because you will get the injuries along the way, and you don't want to be having to play players out of position or whatever to try and make up for those gaps against top quality teams, which is absolutely what we're going to get drawn against.
I think that year there was already rumours Brendan wasn't happy with the summer transfer business, wasn't there? I think he'd lined up a couple of players we missed out on. I think one of the guys had delayed his holiday to speak to him about it, hadn't he? And he left thinking it was done and it didn't go over the line. So, yeah, you've got to hope the board are going to back Ange this year. We don't fall back to that old pattern. I mean, we simply done our business early in both transfer windows, once Ange was in. So, we open on Friday. Hopefully, we'll get some announcements.
Yeah, that'd be lovely. Patrick, it's a really good point that you make. It's not about standing still, is it? We really need to go for this, and I'm quite confident they will go for this. I don't think Ange is a manager who's going to accept second best in this window. Michael Nicholson's, a young CEO with a lot of fresh ideas. I think he knows in himself, having been in the board and around the board at that point in time, we can't repeat the mistakes of the past. And bringing in a guy like Mark Lowell surely means that we're going to do business well, and get the players in that fits the manager's system, and hopefully really, really kick on from now on in, because we're in a great position of strength. Nobody probably expected us to have, the League Cup, the league in the bag, and straight into the Champions League. And again, we've not got this dithering delay that we've always had of, are we going to be in the Champions League or not? So will we hold back the money?
Yeah, as you're saying, you'd hit a sort of a pinnacle, a zenith, or whatever you want to call it, in 2017. I think it was something like 37 points. We finished ahead of Rangers. We'd been in the Champions League. We'd qualified for it again. We had all this money. We had such a good squad. And from there, it basically went downhill up until, Ange came in. It was slowly getting worse and worse. You continue to win those trebles, but in terms of Europe, in terms of, the squad, it was a slow decline, really. And we've now, Ange has turned it around. All of a sudden, we're on top again, and we really need to capitalise on it, because you've got 35 million guaranteed, plus whatever games you get some points from, or if you qualify for the Europa League after Christmas. You really need to capitalise on a sort of moment of opportunity. I think we've all spoken about it on here before. You're probably looking at the 2 loan guys, a replacement for Rogic, and then 2 or 3 other players as well to really improve the squad. Improve the defence, the goalkeeper, left back, midfield. In order for Ange's system to work, you have to have players that can play it. We've seen that early last season. We couldn't even beat Midtjylland at home. So, yeah, the board, we've still got 2 months, obviously, 3 months. 3 months, because you can sign players in August. But, yeah, hopefully the club have learned from their mistakes. It was a mistake we made 5 years ago, so they've had plenty of time to learn from it. And I agree with you. I think we have learned. I think Ange is the right man for the job. He's the man in charge. So I think we'll fare a lot better.
Yeah, absolutely. Just looking at that, Line-up when we absolutely get hammered in the part of the Prance with Callum McGregor playing on that left-hand side. If you remember, there was that wee part in that. It was a lot stronger team. Lustig returned to right back with Boyata, Siminovic in the middle, Tierney at left back. But Lawrence, absolute jubilation for the Celtic fans in that away end. First minute, Big Musa, bang, 1-0 Celtic. And we thought, here we go. And then 8 minutes later, Neymar equalises. And it was almost as if we'd, hit a raging bear that was going to come storming at us. And it was a long, long night that evening.
Yeah.
Only a season after watching Celtic get hammered 7-0 in the Nou Camp.
Yeah, Brendan didn't seem to learn anything, did he? Let's put it down. Tierney's breakthrough season, he was named in Champions League. Even league and goals, he was named in the breakthrough team, wasn't he?
Possibly, yeah, I think so.
It was just it was an embarrassing night, not covering up and going, right, when it gets to 3 or something, you're going, right, we really need to just part of us here, just don't lose any more goals, not keep on and losing 7, but the Rodgers in Europe, I don't think he ever really done that well when he was leading Celtic. Whereas Ange, I think he's given us a glimpse that, he can put a team together that are going to do well in these competitions. So, yeah, we trust the board to Bell. We've got to hope and trust that the board back him. It opens Friday. You'd like to see at least Jota and Cameron Carter-Vickers being announced early, wouldn't you? And then from there, we've been rumoured with a couple of left backs. I think maybe a backup keeper and our striker, but we'll see. It'll keep us busy talking about it all summer.
That's it. Yep, attacking midfielder I think is on the radar too. I think there's going to be plenty to come in. I don't think we are going to stand still. I really hope we don't, but I don't think we are. Patrick, as Lawrence said there, but we didn't really learn any lesson. We saw us be beaten 7-0 in the Nou Camp, and this was another horror show night. Obviously the quality of Neymar, Cavani's, and Mbappe's in the park is yet to be seen. But surely after being on the end of a tanking the season before, some lessons should have been learned.
Yeah, and I think Harvey Brady might have said this at the time, about maybe the season after, when you get gubbed, like 3 times in 2 seasons, and then you're given the instructions to do the exact same and play the exact same, and then you get gubbed again. It's a bit demoralising, and you start to lose faith in your system. It might work domestically. That season, even domestically, it was a bit of a slog at times. But to do it in Europe and for it to constantly not work, the players lose belief. And I think you've seen that against teams like Anderlecht. We should be beating Anderlecht at home. I know they get a new manager and they were like a month or 2 into this sort of new manager bounce, but that last game, it was a chance to sort of redeem ourselves after getting gubbed away in Paris, and we never done it. And again, just a real disappointment, really. I mean, that season, disappointment after disappointment. I think they were 1-0 up for a long time in that game, and if they made it 2, we could have been heading out, because I think if they won 3-0, they had the superior goal difference. They never get gubbed as much as we get gubbed, so that could have been risky. But yeah, just very disappointing, and hopefully it's something that we can learn from. Even if it was 5 years later, we've got a completely new squad, basically a completely new manager. Hopefully it's something we can learn from. And, as I said about 5 minutes ago, it's a matter of making good signings, having a good team, trusting the players, because we can't be going into, I know he's a different player now, but we can't be going into these games and relying on a guy like Anthony Ralston, because he was, even in 2017, he was sort of in the wilderness. We all knew he was a very poor player back then. He's came on leaps and bounds since, but you shouldn't have to rely on poor players in early September when you're playing, creme de la creme in Europe.
No, absolutely not. AGSC winning our usual Tuesday. Listeners, I came in with the comments, Patrick, so I was covering you up while you were talking about it, saying it's all about strengthening in a position of strength, but in a targeted and strategic way, rather than many reckless signings that don't fit our system or culture or the country in the league. Absolutely. I think obviously in January, following on from that summer transfer window in Cham, was when Marvin Comper came in, and then it started to seriously take the hit down the way. So yeah, absolutely right. It's about getting the right players in that the manager wants, suits the system, and absolutely go for it in the Champions League. Moving away from 7-1 in the Parc des Princes, Lawrence, this is the one that really sticks with me, is the 1-0 defeat at home to Anderlecht. It was the last time up until the presentation day, the 6-0 game against Motherwell, that we heard the Champions League anthem at Celtic Park. It was the last time that we heard it, definitely. On an actual Champions League night, we get beat 1-0. It was a Jozo Simonovic own goal. It is important that the team who looks to a lesser extent stronger in the group, that we do go on and beat them. And this was a night that really disappointed me.
Yeah, at Celtic Park, we should, as Patrick said, we should be beating teams like Anderlecht. 1-0 out with a bit of a whimper, wasn't it? You touched on it. If they'd scored another one, you could have been going through. Disappointing campaign all in, I think, wasn't it? It's just Brendan just didn't seem to have it for Europe. Whatever system he put out, did he seemed a bit lost there. I don't know if he's getting any better, but he didn't really seem to do it well. So hopefully, I think Ange will do a much better job. His system seems to be better. His first stab at Europe, and he's only got half his team in, I thought was decent. We can score goals away from home. So I think Ange will do better. I don't think we're going to be looking at 7-1s or 5-0s, or losing teams like Anderlecht at Celtic Park. I think he'll get us up for it and deliver results.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially if he strengthens this summer, which I think is definitely going to happen. So yeah, we're in a good position here. It's about kicking on. Patrick, as you say, going into that 2017-18 season, you weren't actually too confident where we were at, even after coming off the back of a phenomenal domestic season. We didn't strengthen up to a level, for the Champions League, and that was after the disappointing defeats against Barcelona. No, taking any victories against Borussia Mönchengladbach. So yeah, and obviously we did really well against Manchester City, but it didn't count for anything because ultimately we didn't even qualify after Christmas. But eventually we get to this point here. We have Zenit St Petersburg after Christmas. This is Rodgers' first stab at European football after Christmas. As Celtic manager, 1-0 defeat, 1-0 victory at Celtic Park. Cal McGregor, it's a great goal. Another forgotten man, Charlie Masonda, lays the ball on to him. You think, okay, we're 1-0 up here. We've got something to hang on to. Over we go to St Petersburg, and we concede in the 8th minute, and then it just becomes a long night.
Yeah, pretty terrible. The home leg, we should have scored more. We should have had at least a 2-0 lead. And I think with 2-0, for them, it's a bit more of a psychological hurdle. 1-0, all they need to do is open the score, and then it's a level game. And when they do it within 8 minutes, all of a sudden they've got 82 minutes at home to beat us. Really, I remember. Kouassi played that game in a very. I think he was in a very forward role. Actually, I think he was an attacking midfielder. Again, lack of strength and depth, because there's no way he should have been anywhere near that first 11. And Cham played that night. I remember Dembele leading the line, but we should have won that game by at least 2 goals, and then to go away, I think we're 3-0 down in half an hour. I mean, it's just terrible. I know we're famous for being terrible away from home, but that must be up there to concede a lead like that so easily and so early in an away leg. It's lamentable. It's terrible. And we've not really done it since. But again, just another disappointment. I think no one really. I don't think we were favourites going into that tie, but when we seen how we played in the first leg, 1-0 going on 2 or 3, you maybe fancied yourself going into the second leg, and to just have that sort of sucker punch again, sort of typical Celtic in Europe. But yeah, again, just another disappointment that season, really.
Yeah, it was, Lawrence. As Patrick touches on there, it was 2 goals we conceded in 27 minutes. So right away, you're looking at the game and you're thinking, even at this point in time, we just looked as if we'd all the energy sucked out of us by that point, and we didn't really, come into it. Patrick, you've mentioned that Kouassi came in that January as a transfer. I've already mentioned Marvin Comper coming in too. even looking at the Europa League, Lawrence, that season, we knew we probably did have to strengthen a wee bit more to try and kick on in the competition. And it just looked once again as if we weren't interested. I mean, we got our backsides handed to us that night in St Petersburg. We didn't deserve to go through the tie. And once again, it was a European football after Christmas, and we failed to win the tie. We won one of the games at home, but in the overall tie, we get put out. And once again, the season afterwards, it's Europa League football, group stages. We get into the round of 32, and Valencia beat us comfortably at Celtic Park. We're close over there, but again, ultimately, we don't come through the tie. What lessons do you think are in that? Obviously, Ange had the crack at the conference, coming through after Christmas this year. That's probably the game that's best to, people would say maybe best to judge them on in terms of where the squad's at. But again, I think we're a better team since February. Only a few months back, because we just look as if we're starting to click a wee bit. There was maybe that wee bit of lull in performance in February. We played a lot of games, coming back with the crowds being out. We had to play that game, that derby game against Rangers. It was a lot of games coming thick and fast at the players. But, in terms of that Zenit game, the Valencia game following it on, it didn't seem as if Celtic as a club had learned, because again, I would say we went into both those ties underprepared in terms of transfers coming in. Obviously, we're looking a good bit ahead here in terms of January. We've not even passed this summer transfer window. But it should be a case that if we do need to bring in players in January, like we just did this year, we can do it comfortably.
Yeah, let's hope so. I mean, Ange touched on it kind of the early part of last season, that he felt one of the results was because we weren't prepared properly, and he's not going to let that happen again. So I think he'll be demanding the board get guys in early. And I think the board have got to realise it looks like a decent manager. It looks as if he could do something in Europe. So back him. And let's see where we can go with Ange's philosophy and his team. He's built a fairly decent team really quickly. I think just about every one of his transfers has worked out. So, they've got to have confidence this guy knows the type of players that will work well in his system. So, it's quite reduced the risk for them. So, yeah, hopefully they do go out and back him.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll be interested to see how we do fare this season in Europe, Patrick. We've touched on a campaign where we got two big hitters, a team who looked certainly beatable at Celtic Park. We get the good result against them away from home. It's, completely different managers, completely different times, but there is probably lessons to be learned in that last season in the Champions League. Not that I think Ange will be going back, looking at reruns of us getting beat 1-0 at home to Anderlecht, but there's certainly lessons that, as fans, you've certainly learned probably from watching Celtic then to now.
Yeah, be less open would be definitely one of them.
Mm.
But this season, at times we went full games without conceding a shot on target. So I think defensively we're a lot better. Obviously that will be tested, next season. A lot of the times in football at the higher level, it's all about sort of punishing mistakes. So if we can sort of avoid, the back four and the goalkeeper giving away the ball easily, I think that'll be a key factor, because as much as we are known for pressing in Scotland, these guys at the top level, all these guys will try and press the ball, maybe not as intensely as we do, but they'll be trying to close down Starfelt and Carter Vickers, and we've got to make sure we don't make any mistakes or minimise the amount of mistakes that we make, because it's shooting yourself in the foot is probably the worst type of goal you can concede. But if we sign well, which I think we will, then hopefully we can try and kick on. And the whole world knows that Scottish teams with a bit of good fortune, or you could say a lot of good fortune, can reach European finals nowadays. Maybe not the Champions League, but the Europa League and the Europa Conference League. It's the level that we should be at. We should be competing in the latter stages of these tournaments, because we all now know that it's possible.
Yeah, Lawrence, to add on to that, do you think this, what could you say, this security that we've got, complete entry into that group stage is going to be beneficial to us? Or do you think that the board would still have been, as positive in the backing going into this had we still had to play qualifiers this season?
Listen, it's less risky for them now, so I don't think the backing would have been the same. Just now, it's guaranteed money as opposed to maybe money. So they would have backed him, but maybe not to the same level. So they really don't have an excuse now not to back him. The guaranteed entry. Everybody knows how much money they'll make from it. So it is about, stand up and back the manager. He's won the league back. Some decent showings in Europe so far. There's been real spells of games where you thought, what, you can go toe-to-toe with teams away from home and we can score goals. So I don't see why they wouldn't. His transfer record's been really, really good so far. So yeah, so it's reduced risk in that way as well. So you've got to think Michael Nicholson will come out and say, right, who is it you're after? I don't know if Lowell Junior's started yet. There was rumours that he wasn't going to start till August. I don't know if that's true. But surely somebody there is identified where we need people and they've got a list of targets.
Yeah, Patrick, it's not, it wasn't a surprise that, we went on to win the league. They looked in a very good position to go on and do that. Post-January, I'm sure there was been planning in place, which again I think is important. And it's something that Ange did well compared to other managers. I wrote this in an article and I was talking about Gucci recently that, bringing him in January along with Matt O'Reilly looks as if we had planned ahead for Beaton and Rogic departing. That's going to be really, really important because it's always about being one step ahead, which I think we've been really, really poor at. And transfer windows and going forward, obviously there's people at the club, guys that we paid a lot of money for, in terms of Barkas and Ayeti, who as of yet don't look as if they're going to make it at the club. It's about having that forward planning stage. At this point in time, many would say we've only really got two proper strikers that you can trust in Kyogo. Giacomakis, obviously we know Maeda and Abada can play for the middle, but it's about looking at that as a position. For instance, just as up top, it's likely Ayeti isn't going to do the job. Even if we don't shift him out the door, we still need to probably bring somebody in that position, just so we know that we're comfortable and that if one gets injured, we still have two to pick from.
Yeah, you just need to be strong in every position. There's a lot of positions like that where you don't even have two guys that you can trust. You look at left back, you look at the goalkeeper. There's probably, apart from Taylor and Hart, there's probably no one else that you trust in those positions. I know he gave Scott Bain an extra deal, an extra year in his deal, but hopefully that's just so we can get money from. But I think, as you were saying earlier in the podcast, 23, 24 players in a sort of tight-knit squad, two quality players in every position. Yes, you could say you need a striker, but there's other positions where you get no cover at all, especially in defence. But I'm sure, as you say, forward planning, Ange will have looked at all this. I think when Beaton and Rogic left, it came out that they'd been planning this for months. They'd known this for months that this was going to happen. And that's why they made the move for Gucci and Matt O'Reilly, to give them the couple of months to play, to bed in, so they're ready to go next season, as opposed to bring them in, sort of deadline day with Jota, where they need a few months to settle in. But they were a big relief last season because of the injuries that we had, but they're now sort of ready to kick on this season. And I look forward to it because I think Gucci especially will play a much bigger role than he did towards the end of last season.
Yeah, absolutely. And Lawrence, they're all going to get this pre-season under their belt, which is going to be vitally important. I know guys like Callum McGregor and whatnot is going to not return to a bit later. He said he's already had a wee bit of a break in Dubai. He's going to have a break when he comes back after Scotland's Nations League games. But it's going to be really important because I think as a group they're in a really, really good place now. They're a real tight-knit squad. You can see that with the way they interact with each other. There's a real togetherness and a collective there, and I think a pre-season's only going to help that. Go away. If you'll remember, thinking back to last year's pre-season, watching us down in Wales in the old Celtic TV stream, there was still an uncertainty with us as football fans when we're going to get back in August. Everything just seems a lot more relaxed, chilled out now. We've certainly got that Champions League football to look forward to. We're the champions of Scotland. We've got a pre-season here. It looks like a decent lined-up pre-season. And it's just about pressing that restart button and going again with hopefully more additions into that squad.
Yeah, get the additions in early, hopefully. Hopefully this pre-season's a wee bit kind of last pre-season in terms of injury, you know what I mean? If we can get a fully fit squad ready for the Champions League qualifiers, who knows what can happen with Ange. I mean, Getting another striker in, I don't know if we'll bring another one in while yet he's still in the books though. You know, he's on a lot of money. He scored in Europe for us away, so if he's fit and we can't move him, I think that's when we might struggle to get a fourth, because there's going to be a fourth striker in then, isn't it? You're pushing yet even further down the pecking order. Probably get no chance of any money back from then if he's that far down the pecking order. Yeah. So maybe, who knows? He looked fitter at the beginning of last season under Ange, so you might see him used a wee bit because Ange does like to change his front players. So we'll wait and see, but I can't see us bringing in another one while we've still got him on the books. I'd like us to, but I can see that happening. I think keeper, left back, definitely. Yeah, attacking midfielder.
Yeah, well, all will be revealed. Acsom will be here Monday to Friday to keep you up to date with transfers. I'm sure we'll be chatting plenty more about players coming into Celtic, departing Celtic. Thanks to everybody for their comments, getting involved in. Please do like the video if you've been watching today. Lawrence, Patrick, thank you for joining me on this Tuesday afternoon.